Well, here I go again, bitching about these large companies. This particular one, Brakes Plus, and in particular in Queen Creek, Arizona. This is the third customer of mine that has been there. Previously there were two ladies that went there, and this is a gentleman. They all got the same report. Three totally different vehicles, three totally different ages. Well, sir, whilst we had your car up on the ramp, we noticed blah. And let's see what they noticed, shall we? Front strut coil suspension. For each they want $424.20. That's for the parts. Labor is another $432, and that's going to be a total of $1,282.40. Your rear shocks need replacing as well, sir. And for that, it's going to be two shocks at $193 each. They must be fucking gold-plated, bringing a total of $387.40. Oh, there are no fees. However, the labour to install two shocks, and I would imagine, and I haven't looked at the vehicle yet, it'll be a nut on the top and a nut and bolt on the bottom. So that's about 10 minutes work each side. $140 they want for that, bringing a total of $527. Alignment, thrust or four-wheel. Well, I can't comment on the alignment, and they only want a mere $84.95. Why they couldn't round it to $85 or $84, who knows? Rip-off merchants. What else did they say? Oh, lower control arms and ball joints, both sides. Parts $301.18 each. Bringing, let's see, oh, and then the labour for that is $327, bringing a grand total of $929.36. For some reason, they've also added to replace front struts. Oh, hang on there, are we going back to the original there? No, they seem to be adding in more stuff to replace the front struts for some reason. Can't quite think why. They originally said the front strut replacement will be $1,282. Now they seem to be saying it's the labour. I'm not quite sure what they're doing here. Then again, I'm sure they're not. This is, hey, let's confuse the customer. And I'm not the customer. The strut assemblies here are apparently $294.99 each, yet here they're $424.20 each. I'm not quite sure. Oh, I do beg your pardon here. I am sorry. This one's Brake Masters, this one's Brake Plus. He got it quoted at two places. Interesting, very interesting. So, okay, hang on. Let me rewind here. Control arm and ball joints with Brakes Plus is $929.36. It would appear that Brake Masters didn't want to replace them. Okay. Over here, replacing the front struts, rear shocks. Hang on. This is Brakes Plus I'm talking about. Brakes Plus, the struts, the rear shocks, hang on a second, and complete strut assemblies Well, anyway, basically they want $1,285, and they also want to do the control arms and ball joints for another $929, bringing this total at Brakes Plus to $2,247.08. And at Brakes Masters, they want him to spend on the front struts and the rear shocks $1,922.19. A big difference, but then again, Brakes Plus are also adding in the control arms, which probably don't need doing. So we have Brake Masters, Brake Plus. They deal with brakes. They're telling him he needs all this stuff. So I asked him, I said, okay, so what inspection did they do? Well, so we've done your, whatever it was he went in for, I think it was an alignment. We've checked this out, and whilst we had your vehicle up on the ramp, we noticed blah, 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 blah. Christ, you can smell the bullshit from here. They didn't even check it, as far as I'm aware. Because they did like they did to my two lady customers. They stuck their head inside, they turned the ignition key, saw what the mile reading was and said, oh, he needs struts, control arms, shocks, blah, blah, blah. So I asked him, does it feel bad? Does it, when you drive it? No, it feels fine. So I'm going to check it for him next week. I will lay odds. He doesn't need front struts. He doesn't need rear shocks. He may need control arms, but that depends. I mean, obviously I would check the bushes to see if the bushes are worn. And I will also check the shocks to see if they're leaking. And I will do the bounce test. And it's a very simple test. You don't need much brains for it. You lean heavily on the car, let go. If it bounces more than 1.5 times, the shocks are fucked. Doesn't matter whether they're gas, oil, what they're filled with. They could be filled with farts. It doesn't matter. And then you look underneath. Now, even if it's a gas shot, there is some oil in there, I believe. And if that's leaking out, then yeah, the shock's fucked. I mean, you can look and see if the shock's collapsed. You can look and see if the bushes are shot. There are various things you can look at on the shocks. If you watch a guy called Car Wizard, he shines his light up and goes, your shocks are good, they're not leaking. Well, that's not really a test. Especially when you're looking at a gas shock. Well, how would you know a gas shock is leaking? You won't unless the oil's leaking out. So you have to do a proper test. And granted, he does it just for the YouTube quick check. So, I'm sure he does a better or a more thorough inspection than just shines his light on it and goes, it's not leaking, that's okay. I'm sure he does a lot more than that. He doesn't seem like a bad mechanic. If he was, he wouldn't still be in business. But anyway, my warning to you is, if you go to somewhere like Brakes Plus, Brake Masters, we got one out here called Christian Brothers. They are not very Christian at all. They will always rip you off. Now, these are just my opinions, so, forget your libel suits. It's just a person's opinion. And I'm allowed to have my opinion as they are allowed to have theirs, and they are allowed to say that these things need replacing. And they will argue to the hilt that they need replacing, even though they didn't check them. Like going to Jiffy Lube or somewhere like that and expecting them to do a proper job with your oil change and your air filter needs replacing and what's the classic one? The brakes need flushing and you need a fuel system treatment. Guys, girls out there, if you are not mechanically adept, it's worth going to one of these places just to get the report. Then, if you go to, I don't know, O'Reilly's, Pet Boys, AutoZone, one of those places, and speak to the manager and say, hey, do you have a trusted mechanic? Now, there's no guarantee of this, of course, But there's a pretty good chance you will get a mechanic, perhaps somebody that works at the store that knows cars like I do, and will fix them at his home, or maybe even on your driveway if you're lucky. I don't do that, I do all mine at home. And fix the car for a lot less than these people want to charge. Save yourself some money and some hassle. And also, and I don't get paid for this, parts from the auto parts stores are not always the cheapest. I use Rock Auto a lot. Yes, you have to wait. Sometimes there can be a little issue, but I've never really had a major problem. And it depends what you're buying. I would always be very wary of buying sensors and things like that, purely because the vehicles that are built are normally built to the manufacturer's spec of a particular type of sensor. And if you start buying an OEM sensor, not an OEM sensor, sorry, an aftermarket sensor, it can sometimes cause issue, particularly with mass airflow sensors and things like that. You can get into a whole nightmare scenario because you didn't want to pay the extra dollars at the dealership, or what does somebody call them, the stealership. But sometimes that is your best bet. That's a whole another scenario, dealing with dealers and buying your parts from your local parts store. It's like when you're buying tools. I buy Snap-on tools 99% of the time, or maybe 98. But there'll be a tool I need, and I'll go to Harbor Freight and get it. Harbor Freight? I'll go there and get it. Why? Well, because it's cheaper. It's let's say a specialized tool like a brake tool or something like that. I'm not doing this every day, day in, day out. I am just doing it, and I need that special tool. While Snap-on one's $500, I get one from Harbor Freight for $50. I use it once every blue moon. The guy that buys the Snap-on tool is in the shop, and he uses it quite often. So they're just my thoughts on mechanical stuff. I could add a whole shitload more. And if you guys, girls out there are watching this and going, that's interesting. I wonder what he thinks about this tool or this particular part for a car. Where should I get it? I'm always willing to give my opinion. That's all it is. It's my opinion. But I am a mechanic with, 60 years experience. Now, I haven't always been a mechanic, but I have been working on cars and bikes, since I was 16, so that's even more than 60 years. So we won't go into that, will we? Don't ask my age, just because I told you I'm 71. And I have worked on a variety of vehicles. Must admit I prefer the older ones, but I can still work on the newer ones, unless it comes down to dealing with the computer stuff where it needs a $50,000 piece of diagnostic equipment to tell me I need to replace this relay. I can't do that. All right, that's all. I just wanted to throw that out there to warn you people about these kind of shops. The lubrication shops, the big brake places, the Christian Brothers, Christ, I can't even think of the names of these other people. Amco, all of these huge car repair places. Cars are always there, cars are always going to need repairing, and they will always rip you off. They will always try and make you spend more than you anticipated. So you need to be armed and educated. So when you go in there, you're ready. Don't just say, yeah, go ahead and do it. Check it, double check. Go speak to somebody that's got knowledge. A friend of a friend of a friend who is a mechanic. Let him have a look at your vehicle. I guarantee you that this vehicle that my friend has taken to them probably doesn't need, excuse me a second, $2,247 or $1,922. I guarantee that even if I did the work on these sheets, he would be spending less than $1,000. including parts. Now, that's not just because I'm cheap. I'm not cheap, but I'm fucking good. And I will fix their vehicle for them. And I will still have a few dollars in my back pocket to take me and my wife out for a nice meal. These companies, yes, they have big overheads. I don't, of course I don't. I'm just a guy at home that does it for fun. I'm retired, so I do it for fun. But my customers would even come to me for an oil change when my oil change is more expensive than your Jiffy Lube, because they know that I will do the job, I will do the job right, and then if I do see something, they know that there is a problem. And I won't just rip them off by saying, oh, you need new oil. I look at their mileometer and go, oh, this one's got 100,000, so we should replace the rear axle, and we should replace all the brakes, and let's do the headlighting and the headlights at the same time because they really need doing, and let's get all the suspension done, and blah, blah, blah. I had lunch today with a friend of mine. He was telling me about, I won't mention the company, I've already mentioned their name, you'll have to figure out who it is. He had a Toyota truck. They told him the timing belt had gone, so he needed to have it replaced. $2,000, $2,500, whatever it was. So he said, yeah, do it. So they did it. He was then driving wherever it was he was driving to, and the vehicle broke down, all the lights came on, and blah, blah, blah. So he had it towed to them. Oh, well, it was your timing belt. You just did my timing belt. And I'm still not sure if it was a timing belt or serpentine belt, but I wasn't there. And this story I'm receiving secondhand, so you got to understand I'm taking it a bit with a pinch of salt, because he said all the lights came on, he had no steering, blah, blah, blah. To me, that's serpentine belt, not timing belt. Anyway, they fixed it free of charge. Free of charge. He drove off somewhere else. The same thing happened again. They said, oh, it's your timing belt. But hang on a minute, you just did that. Oh, yeah, but, the timing belt failed. Well, that's not my fault. Oh, yeah, but it's still going to be blah, blah, blah. All right, go ahead and fix it. It's stupid. But he did. Go ahead and fix it. Then he was driving again somewhere else. Same scenario. And he had it towed a couple hundred miles, actually, back to where they did the original work. Oh, it's your timing belt. He said, hang on a minute. This is the third time. Yeah, but this time it's fucked your engine. You need an engine rebuild. That's going to cost you another $2,500. So he said, all right, go ahead and do it. Foolishly, he said, go ahead and do it. So they did it. He then got rid of the vehicle. I think he said to CarMax. Oops. You cannot trust garages, and unfortunately that gives mechanics, like me, a really bad name, because they will rip people off. Now, I don't blame the guy in the shop, the mechanic in the shop, because he's told, if you want to keep your job, you will upsell. Go on the front counter. If you want to keep your job, you will upsell. And the people that own these places, and I think a lot of them are franchised, so if you don't get me X number of dollars per month, go look for another job. And who pays for it? Poor ass customer. Don't be one of those poor ass customers. Come see someone like me. Go see someone in a local car parts store and find a decent mechanic that you can trust. There's a lot of them out there. And yeah, okay, they may not have a big fancy shop, but they do good work. They're cheaper. And you will probably get a better job. Because if they're a decent guy, they will tell you what they see and not necessarily do it. They just say, hey, look, 6 months' time, we're going to need to do this. We're going to need to do that. Think about it. Don't get fucked. All right, off my soapbox. Now get out in the garage and do your own shit.